Hi there, my name is Toby, and today I want to tell you about what I think is the largest pseudoscience in history. So I'm going to lead up to this. I'm going to tell you a few of them, but I'm going to save the best till last. So please bear with me and wait till I tell you the number one pseudoscience in the world today. But what is pseudoscience? What does this mean? Well, pseudoscience is a term that has been invented by the establishment. And it means simply this: real science comes from the establishment. Any science that does not come from the establishment is pseudoscience. But I put it to you, pretty much all the science that comes from the establishment is pseudoscience. It's the other way round. And it's very frustrating. And we can see this most recently in this new discovery of structures under the pyramids. I've already done a video on this. I'll leave the links below. But that is done by two serious mainstream scientists. The team is led by two professors of two universities in Italy. One of the professors is also a top engineer, one of the leading experts in something called SAR, synthetic aperture radar, one of the leading experts in this technology. But because they discovered something to do with the pyramids, suddenly it's pseudoscience. So this is one of the main criticisms. Oh, that's just pseudoscience. Now, before they had this discovery, there'd be no question. Oh yeah, they're professors of universities. Oh yeah, of course they're real scientists. As soon as they do their research on the pyramids, oh, now it's pseudoscience. It's utter madness, very frustrating. And it's Egyptologists, archaeologists, not engineers. The establishment in Egyptology, archaeology, they are the ones saying, oh, that technology is pseudoscience. Hang on a second, you're not engineers. How can you make that claim? In fact, it now proves that Egyptology is in itself a pseudoscience. That's what this new discovery is proving. And look, and even with the pyramids, forget about what's underneath. Just forget about that. We already knew the pyramids were incredible before we knew anything underneath them. And it's totally ignored. Mainstream archaeology, mainstream Egyptology totally ignores this one fact, undeniable fact. That is, the pyramids were built with the most incredible precision and alignment. How did they do such precision and alignment? How did they get the measurements? And again, the measurements connect to real numbers in the universe. How did they know those numbers? And how did they build them with such precision on such a massive scale? Just ignore that one. Oh, yeah, no. How can you ignore that? Forget about what's underneath. So already one major pseudoscience, Egyptology. And archaeology as well, archaeology. Again, they're just digging things up, looking at them, and then trying to fit them into the story that they have been told. Sure, they've got some written documents, they translate documents. Yeah, but there's so many documents hidden away, there's so many stuff we don't know. So again, it's extremely presumptuous, and every one of these archaeologists just goes back to the previous book written by the previous researcher. It's all taken for granted, one step on top of the other step. They're building a castle. It's a castle in the sky. That's pseudoscience. Someone starts the first brick. It's a fantasy. Yeah, but we build the next brick and the next brick and then the next brick. Well, now we've got a whole castle. Oh, it must be true now. It must be true now. No, pseudoscience. Now, the one I've talked about a lot is quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics. Now, I've already talked a lot about that, but that is, again, a total pseudoscience. It's not a real science, not at all. The entire quantum mechanics is based on an assumption. It all began from one assumption, and the assumption is that light is a particle. Oh yeah, it's not a particle. It's a wave and it's a particle. It's both. All right, it's both. So this is, again, the very first block building this castle in the sky. Now we've got a massive castle, all of quantum mechanics. Oh, it's a big castle. It must be true. No, the very first block is a fantasy. If you can't see this, again, watch my series on ether physics from the very beginning. I talk about this in great detail. But light cannot be a particle. Light is emitted from an atom and it's emitted in all directions at once, spherically. If light was a photon, it would come out in one direction only. You wouldn't see light anywhere else. You'd only see light in one spot. No, you don't. Light goes everywhere. Even a laser. A laser is a straight line. Yeah, that's not photons. That's not a beam of photons in a line. The light comes out of the atoms in all directions. It has to go into a crystal, and the crystal has to focus the light into a line. It's also got a lens. It's got mirrors. It has to have a lens to focus the beam. If light was a photon, a particle, you could just focus the beam and you would get little photons all going in one line. Never happens like that. The whole thing is pseudoscience. Now let's look at it another way. We've got something called dark energy, dark matter. Okay, let's go dark matter. Dark matter is relatively new. So let's just say, I don't know how old it is, 20 years ago, 10, 50, I don't know, let's say 20 years ago, if I was a YouTuber, I don't know if YouTube was around 20 years ago, but just say, I was a YouTuber 20 years ago and I say, oh, by the way, there's a thing called dark matter. I'd be called pseudoscience. Oh, this guy's crazy. Where's your proof? Where's your proof for dark matter? Oh, can you prove it? No. Can you see it? No. Is there anything that proves it exists? No. Yeah, that's pseudoscience. But the establishment says, oh, there's a thing called dark matter. Oh yeah. Can you prove it? No. Can you see it? No. Is there any even indirect evidence that it exists? No. Does it have any effect on anything? No. Oh, but the establishment says it. That's science, not pseudoscience. And quantum mechanics is filled with all this fantasy stuff. Particles go backwards in time. We've got instantaneous action at a distance. We've got wormholes. We can transport from one point to another instantaneously, disappear and reappear. We've got 11 dimensions, multi-dimensional universes. Hang on, this is all science fiction. This is all pseudoscience. Pseudoscience. But the establishment says it. Oh, that's real science. That's real science. Me, I talk about the ether. I'm talking about it from the very beginning with pure logic. If you watch my ether physics from the beginning, if you watch my magical science lectures, the very first one, I start from the beginning, explaining this with logic, step by step. It's not pseudoscience. Again, we're talking about metaphysics, but metaphysics is not pseudoscience. It's pure logic, mathematics. It's pure philosophy. It has to start from pure philosophy, pure logic, and build up step by step. At every step, there must be a logical progression. Otherwise, there's no science there. And we don't have this in modern science. This is all one assumption leading to another assumption. And it's all peer-reviewed. Peer-reviewed? You mean members of your club shaking hands? Anyone says anything different, you're out. You're out. Now, I've seen this myself. When I studied physics, there was a lecture by Professor Brian Josephson. Right, and I think he's a Nobel Prize winner. So he's a very important guy. So they can't dismiss him. They could not dismiss him at the time, but he was giving a lecture on consciousness, spirit. And I could see all the professors squirming in their chairs. But they can't say anything to him because he's a Nobel Prize winner. He's a professor. He's too difficult to kick out. But if he was just a lowly doctor, that guy would be gone, out. And I know you're out, mate. That's pseudoscience. And again, what about ancient philosophers? Even Newton, Pythagoras. Plato, Aristotle, that's all pseudoscience. They're crackpots, idiots. No, we've got Einstein. He's a genius. Einstein, I've talked a lot about Einstein already. Right, so that's another one. Okay, next one, medicine. Ancient herbal medicine, been in existence for thousands of years. All time we've used this. That is now pseudoscience. That's quackery, nonsense. That's rubbish. But relatively recent, mainstream pharmaceuticals, petroleum-based pharmaceuticals. Where did this come from? Was this the scientists? This comes from the oil tycoons. J.D. Rocker, let's call him J.D. Rockerola. Was he a scientist? These are the guys that pushed this stuff. Oh, but that's real science. But herbal medicine, that's pseudoscience. Yeah. Okay, let's look at a modern one. We've got climate science. Climate science. Oh, that's real. That's real science. The establishment, the authorities, the political system. Why is the political system pumping out science? It's all hand in hand. Oh, that's real science. Now, you should know, and people who know, they know, you have to research deeper, because you will not find the answers within the establishment. The whole establishment is pseudoscience. If you go looking in the pseudoscience for confirmation, you're going to find it. You have to look outside the pseudoscience. But you should know, I remember when I first looked into this, there was a group, I think, of 500 international scientists from universities, professors, real climate scientists. Okay, but of course these guys lose their funding. If you want the funding, you've got to toe the party line. You've got to follow the politics if you want the money. So these guys were following the science. That means they're out. But these were well-established 500 international scientists, climate scientists. They put together a massive paper. They wrote the whole thing out, and they went to, I think, either it was one of these UN meetings, it might be one of the COP meetings, like COP20, I don't know where we are on this. And they made sure every single delegate of this meeting had the paper put in front of them. Scientific paper signed by 500 top international climate scientists, saying this whole thing is a farce. None of this is real. Here's the science. Please stop this nonsense. Every single delegate had this scientific paper, but no media reported on it. Total media blackout. So these guys are now pseudoscience. Hang on a second, a couple of months before, these were the same professors of your universities. These were top respected scientists. No one would have said they're pseudoscience. But one day, they go against the party line, against the story. Now they're pseudoscientists. What? The same professor? What happened to him? Was it when he just went mad overnight? Now you're pseudoscience. And we, all the people, are so naive. We're so simple. We just believe the television. We believe the politicians. Oh, the politicians, they're clever. They know what we need. Yeah. We voted for them. He was a good one. We voted for him. He knows. Yeah, she knows. Oh, she's a lady. She knows. She cares for us. They know the science. The science is settled. That's real science. Not this professor. He's a pseudoscientist now. He doesn't say what they say. Are we really that naive? Have we lost every ounce of critical thinking? It's so frustrating. And any real climate scientist, any real one that is not paid for or super naive, will tell you climate science is extremely complicated. There's so many things going on around the globe with the climate. There's no way of doing these sort of predictions anyway. But there's much more to it. That's the simplest argument against it. But there's so many obvious scientific arguments against it. I'm not going to the details of that one. It's well and truly done. So that's another one. That's another one. But now let me come to the one I want to talk about. There's more. History is another one. History has been rewritten. Again, the American Historic Society, done by the same people, JD Rock and Roller. What did they do? They went to the university, to the professors, told them what they want to say. Most of the professors says, no, we're not saying this. So what did they do? They went abroad. They got the students, the new students. They said, listen, we're going to give you a job. We'll give you a doctorate. We'll make you a professor. We'll put you in a university. We'll pay for everything. All you got to do is make sure you tell the history like this. Oh, okay, we'll do that. Now they got the new society. They built it all up. If you think the modern established science comes from scientists, you are very naive. I don't care. You're thinking on one dimension. And it is so frustrating when you're dealing with so-called scientists that dismiss this stuff. But the real secret I talk about is free energy. Free energy, that's the one science they can never let us have. Never. They will parade an alien, they'll show us aliens, yeah, but they won't show us free energy. I already talked about that a lot, so I'm not going into that one today. Today, I want to tell you what I think is the number one pseudoscience. It's a completely made up science, complete fantasy, but it's established. We're all doing it. We all believe this is real science. It's not. It's total fabricated pseudoscience. What is it? Well, it is, I'm only going to say the word once, it is virology. A total made up, fabricated pseudoscience. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail about this, but I'm going to leave below links, a video by Dr. Sam Bailey, a recent video, and she's the top person to listen to. Look at her videos, look at her website, because not all her videos will be shown on YouTube, but there's some very good ones on YouTube, and she explains in great detail. Her and her husband are both doctors, medical doctors. They've been researching this for years. They're not the only ones. Very top level professors and doctors are trying to get this information out there. The fact of the matter is there is no such thing as let's call it a virus. A virus. Now, I've talked about it in my lectures. I say it very simply. My evidence why there is no such thing as a virus is because there is no life form. Again, very simple. There is no self-replicating life form smaller than DNA. DNA is the smallest self-replicating biological material that is required for life. You cannot have a partial DNA or any other thing smaller than DNA. It will not self-replicate. All life is built on DNA and it's built on cells. That's it. Anything smaller than DNA is not alive. Very simple. And there is no evidence. Again, Dr. Sam Bailey goes into this in great detail. We cannot believe it. We all believe in these terrible little viruses, but there is no evidence for one. Hard to believe. No evidence. No virus has ever been isolated and observed to self-replicate, ever. And there has never been a control experiment. In order to find these viruses, you have to go through multiple processes. You have to blitz up the material, put in solvents. You have to extract it, distill it, another solvent, mix it, look at it in a microscope. Then maybe you find something. It's never been observed in nature to happen. No self-replicating organism smaller than DNA has ever been observed. Again, don't take my word for it. I'm not going to go into the details. Watch the video below. Look at Dr. Sam Bailey. She's really the best one. She explains it in layman's terms, and she presents all the evidence. Her and her husband, again, these were mainstream medical doctors. They believed it all. And it all came about because her husband asked a simple question. He asked one of the professors to say, he just said, can I have, where's the evidence for the paper? He just wanted to see that the original paper, the original discovery of the paper for the AIDS virus. And there is no paper. These papers have nothing in them. When you look at the paper, it's all one assumption built upon another assumption. And there's no control, and the observation are not natural. In other words, it only happens through these multiple processes. So they are real scientists looking through electron microscopes, looking at microscopes, observing biological material, tiny fragments of DNA, this little particle, that little particle, different formations of proteins and whatever. But they are not animate. They are not self-replicating. They don't do anything. Because they're partial fragments of DNA, they might look like they fit in or they connect to DNA. They must do something. But again, no evidence. There's no evidence. That means pseudoscience. Pseudoscience. It goes all the way back to Louis Pasteur. Pseudoscience. It was all fabricated from the beginning. They had a chance. Again, they had a chance. There were two theories. One was called terrain theory. One was called germ theory. Germ theory is this idea of, microorganisms. It's even before viruses, that these things do the damage. Terrain theory said it's not that, it's your environment. Changes in the environment cause disease. And in fact, the changes in environment will change the number of bacteria, microorganisms that appear. So the fundamental problem is the change of environment, internally or externally. That creates the change in microorganisms. And then that supposedly creates the sickness. So that was terrain theory. Germ theory meant, it's the microorganisms. They're all out to get us. And then it goes one step further to the virus. And the original definition, the real meaning of the word virus is toxin. Toxin. And the definition, the so-called scientific definition of a self-replicating pathogen has always changed. It's changed a bit. Because they cannot find evidence for it, they change the definition of it. This is pseudoscience. That's what they complain us to. They would say, I'm a pseudoscientist. I'm just making this stuff up. I'm not just making it up. I'm using deductive reasoning, logic from the beginning. You've got to listen to my lectures from the beginning. These guys are making it up. They literally are making it up. They make up the definition and then they make up the experiment in such a way that it's not even a real experiment. But it's from the establishment. It's from the people with the money. They gave them the money. Trillions of dollars have been spent on these experiments. It must be true. So thank you for listening to this little talk. Again, I said, please do look at, I recommend another guy, Ken Wheeler. I'll leave links to his channel below as well. He talks about ether physics and how quantum mechanics is complete nonsense. Complete nonsense. Now, I'm not saying there are not atoms. There are atoms and there are quantum states in an atom. But you cannot take that one thing and build a whole science from it. This is one of the problems with this is the difference between field theory and particle theory. It's a big deal, So I'm not saying this lightly. If you're new to my channel, this still may seem that I'm saying this lightly. I'm not. There are some serious thinkers that will agree with me on this. But the mainstream, the mainstream will call me pseudoscience. But I'm saying, no, I am following the real philosophical scientific process. And I'm willing to be wrong. I don't mind being proven wrong. I don't mind. I want to know the truth. The mainstream science, they can't handle it. They don't want to be proven wrong. No, we've got it right. Oh, okay, you got it right. Yeah, you got it. You know everything now. There's no more science to know. You can explain all these UFOs. You can explain anti-gravity, can you? You can explain free energy doesn't exist. Yeah, we can see it. We can see these UFOs. You cannot have a UFO without free energy. Can't have it. Has to be a free energy machine in a UFO to power it. Oh, there's no such thing as consciousness, spirit. Yeah, we've got so many life after death experiences. Real people, brain dead, coming back, telling you what happened. Oh, that's not real. That's pseudoscience. Just because you don't understand it, you're going to dismiss it. But you can tell us there's dark matter. There's a thing called a virus. Tiny little things. The whole universe is made of these tiny little things. And what are they going to do? They're trying to get you all. They're going to get us all. If the universe is made up of these little microorganisms, these little viruses evolving so fast, how are there any big creatures left? We would have been wiped out millennia ago. All we'd be left with is these little viruses trying to find some life to kill. It's utter pseudoscience nonsense, but we all believe it. And then they have the cheek to tell us free thinkers that we are pseudoscientists. I'm fed up with this. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. I hope this made sense. Please do leave me any questions or comments below, and I hope to see you in any of these other videos here.